Coming up on TekThing, OnePlus 6, forget the Pixel 2, people. Why YubiKeys are better than authentication apps. Why we don't do more Kickstarter reviews. And hey, is that a giant dragon? All that and more coming up on TekThing. A big thank you to our patrons, Acoma, James Alcantaro, and Ryan. Join the crew that makes TekThing possible at patreon.com/TekThing. Thanks to each and every one of you who make the show possible.
I'm Shannon Morris.
And I'm Patrick Norton.
And this is TekThing, where we have something useful in every single show.
Oh my goodness. I figured out the one thing the iFixit toolkit doesn't have that it desperately needs.
What?
A paperclip.
Oh, you're right.
I have been resetting routers and NASs and a whole bunch of other stuff recently.
Dude, that's so true.
I have put a paperclip inside each of my iFixits.
Oh, see, I was thinking about MacGyvering things.
Well, it works for MacGyver things too.
But you're right. iFixit, get on that. We need paper clips in the next iFixit toolkit that y'all create.
A paperclip. Maybe there's a paperclip replacement tip in the toolkit I just haven't found yet.
Maybe. I've never noticed, but perhaps.
Perhaps. You have been living La Vida Loca. It's a crazy day today. It was, if you are a basketball fan, that's a sports ball thing. The Warriors won their third world championship in 4 years.
Wow.
And 1 million people apparently, or that was the projected number, rolled into downtown Oakland where we work and record.
Yep.
To put that into context, all of Oakland is approximately 730,000 people. It's been an interesting day.
Yes, it has. Go sports ball.
You took sports ball pictures.
I did take
No, you took sports ball fan parade
fan
pictures.
photos, yes.
Well, what'd you think?
Actually, well, I was doing it specifically because I'm reviewing the OnePlus 6 today. I'm so excited about it. So I went into this thinking about how they started their brand with the idea that they are a flagship killer. So now I was trying to figure out, okay, well, is this phone actually a flagship itself, or is this still considered a flagship killer?
So is a flagship killer all the flagship stuff for less money?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. So I'll give you my verdict at the end, but this is currently on sale, just came out. You can find it over at oneplus.com, and they have a bunch of different models. The new OnePlus 6 comes in midnight black, mirror black, and silk white. I love the gold and silk white one. It is so pretty, but I received for a review the mirror black version. They start at a cost of $529. That is for the 6 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of storage option, and then they go up from there. There's $579 option, which is the most popular one. That's 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. And then there's a $629 option for 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs. And that one is like, it's kind of getting near that territory of, computers. That's a little crazy. 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage.
I had a laptop 2 years ago that had those specs.
Yeah, exactly. So it packs a Snapdragon 845 processor, an Adreno 630 GPU, and those storage options. The CPU aside, I think that it's extremely fast. I was very happy with the performance of it. But even then, like, the CPU is doing 2.8 gigahertz. So it's a very, very speedy Snapdragon 845. So the new OnePlus 6 features a full glass design with Corning Gorilla Glass 5. And yes, that does mean that you get fingerprints everywhere. And I have had to carry around a microfiber cloth for this thing. It's got a smaller form factor than the OnePlus 5T, and it does have an 84% screen to body ratio. Luckily, it weighs not very much at 6.2 ounces. That's comparable to the 5T as well. And if you're wondering if it comes with any waterproof specs, it has none. Though it is water resistant according to OnePlus, but there's no IP rating available. So if you get a few drops on it, you're probably going to be fine. Don't dunk it in a toilet, though.
Don't shove it under 1 meter of water for 30 minutes.
No, not a good idea.
Because that happens all the time.
Right, yeah, who's doing that? So let's talk about this screen here that you see in these pictures. It's a 2280 by 1080 pixel in resolution size, which is quite big and very, very nice. It features a 6.28-inch AMOLED 19 by 9 aspect ratio screen with a notch. Yes, that thing at the very top of this that you're seeing, it is a notch, and honestly, I pay little attention to the notch. I barely notice that it's there. It's not bothersome. It didn't feel like it was getting in the way. I would be perfectly fine if the next Pixel phone came with a notch, and it completely wows me that I'm saying that, but after playing with this for several days, that's how I feel. Sorry, guys. Face unlock, that's a new feature. It does actually work. My security industry guy in the workplace would probably yell at me for using it, but it actually works unless I am wearing sunglasses. And in that case, sometimes it errors out, sometimes it actually figures out that it is my face. However, my sunglasses are rather huge on my face. I should mention that.
So the face unlock inside of the iOS is actually pretty secure because of the way it sort of measures your face?
That's what I've heard. I don't have any information on how the technology works on the OnePlus. However, I would assume that it's similar. It works really fast. It's 0.2 seconds to actually get you in and unlocked, and it doesn't work on Friends, but apparently you can unlock it with a lot of luck with a printed photo of yourself. So this guy over on Twitter posted this video, and it basically shows one of his coworkers unlocking a OnePlus 6 with a printed out color photo of himself. He also did a black and white version, and he's just like, hey, love the DEF CON shirt, by the way, if you're watching. So yeah, apparently, there's some issues, but OnePlus has replied and said that they are working on a fix for this, and they are investigating it further.
Might want to turn that off for now.
Yeah, so I would not use that. I'd probably use the fingerprint sensor, which is on the back. So this is right under the cameras. It's really easy to stick your finger on the camera if you aren't paying attention, and then you get grease on the cameras, which make the cameras look kind of blown out. But it is very fast, and it's very responsive as well. It was on par with the Pixel 2 XL's fingerprint sensor.
Is that pretty much the standard, you just have to deal with it, Android location for fingerprint sensors?
In comparison, although this one only has one camera on the back instead of two like the OnePlus 6, this one's in the middle while the camera's up in the top corner. This one has everything in the middle. So it really depends on which phone you're going to get. The battery on this thing was amazing. What are you laughing about?
I just want to point out that the back of this phone was completely shiny at the beginning of the segment.
Yeah, it just, like, you can see all those fingerprints. It looks so
Fingerprints and makeup.
Yeah,
Oh
so
my
put
goodness.
a case on this thing. The battery was excellent. It's got a 3,300 milliamp per hour battery, and in my testing, I was able to keep the screen on watching movies on Wi-Fi for 13 hours straight at full brightness. I also didn't charge this thing last night, and it's currently sitting on, let me just face unlock it. It's so instant. 65% currently.
Is that
and that's
after
with
13 hours of movie? So 13 hours of movie
well,
watching.
that was 13 hours that I did on Sunday. Then I charged it
Okay.
with the dash camera, or dash charger. And then I left it running all day yesterday, starting at 100% in the morning. Didn't charge it last night, and now I'm at 65%. It lasts a really long time.
That's awesome.
I know. So with the dash charger, like I mentioned, I hit 55% in 30 minutes of charging, 91% in an hour, and a full charge in 1 hour and 20 minutes. So it starts to slow down near that 100%, but you get to 55% after 30 minutes. That's awesome.
I mean, that's how lithium-ion batteries charge, though.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
goes
of
like
course.
this, and then it goes, and then it.
And the dash charger has that technology that's built in that keeps it at that 5 volts, and it's really steady so that you get that good, steady charging stream that you're supposed to get. It is USB-C, in case you're wondering, like every other phone now. There is no wireless charging, and according to OnePlus 6, the demand just wasn't there, so they didn't include it. So let's get to the cameras. The dual rear cameras are 16 megapixels with f1.7 aperture, and there's a 20 megapixel secondary camera, and both of those have optical image stabilization.
Nice.
Apparently it packs in a 19% larger sensor than the previous phone as well, and portrait mode has this really nifty feature built in too, where lights will turn into hearts and stars if you wanted to. I know that's kind of gimmicky, but I had a lot of fun with it. But it's not perfect. You can still take raw photos with the included Pro mode, which I love, love, love. That's something that I've really enjoyed with the OnePlus. And I did notice that when I was taking pictures with the OnePlus compared to the Pixel 2 XL, there was a little bit of a delay upon pressing the shutter button on the phone compared to my Pixel 2 XL, which was almost instantaneous. So there's a slight delay whenever you take pictures. That can be kind of annoying whenever you're taking pictures of cats, for example, or some kind of action pictures.
Yeah,
you would
sports
probably
ball.
have the same experience like taking pictures of your kids.
Especially the smaller one who moves quickly.
Yeah.
And you're going to turn around and say, it was mind-blowing to me, the low-light photography on this.
Oh yeah,
I just want to say
the
that.
low light photography on this thing was incredible. It was crazy. I was very, very surprised at it, but I guess I shouldn't be because it has that f1.7
Right.
aperture.
And a bigger sensor, which probably means bigger pixels, which means better low-light
Yes.
performance.
Absolutely.
but I'm out of order. You were going to talk about the 4K video. Sorry.
Yeah. So 4K video is totally possible in this at 60 FPS video with electronic image stabilization. You also have super slow mode for action shots up to 480 frames per second at 720p or 240 FPS at 1080p. So you have a couple of different options with that. And on the screen you see a whole bunch of different examples comparing both this camera to the one on my Pixel 2 XL. There were a couple of times where I noticed, for example, the selfie cam on the Pixel 2 XL did way better than the one on the OnePlus 6. I'll just put that straight out there. They did just update it with a portrait mode as well for that that front-facing camera. So you do get that nice bokeh effect behind you, but I noticed that it's way oversaturated and almost gets kind of blown out in some pictures. For example, I took this one photo where I had that golden light behind me streaming in, and it kind of reflected off of my hair, and it looks so pretty in the Pixel 2 XL's picture. But on the OnePlus, it was a little bit too blown out, so it just looked like a white bright light behind me as opposed to a sunset.
I mean, is that an HDR issue that can be resolved in firmware?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
They could absolutely upgrade the HDR for the portrait camera, and it would probably come out just fine. So that's, of course, a little selfie experiment that I did. And the rear-facing camera, I noticed that they were quite on par with each other. There are a few times when I felt like it was a little too saturated on the OnePlus compared to the Pixel 2 XL, or vice versa, but honestly, they were so close in comparison that it's really hard to distinguish them from one another. And I even posted a picture on Twitter of them side by side, and I was like, quick, which one is the OnePlus 6 and which one's the Pixel 2 XL? And people really couldn't tell until they started looking at the metadata.
Right.
So
I looked at the EXIF data embedded in the photo.
Yep, so there's that. It's still a global phone. It has GSM bands with dual SIM slots, Bluetooth 5.0, NFC, gigabit LTE. It's carrier unlocked, and yes, it does have a headphone jack. Yes, and I prefer listening via headphones because there's one speaker on the bottom, and it's just crap. It's a terrible speaker, especially compared to the dual ones on my Pixel 2 XL. Of course, they have a bigger screen, so they had to take a little bit of leeway and stick the speaker on the bottom. So I understand that, but I like headphones instead. Still features the slider for silent, vibration, and ring modes, which is a nice touch and something that I've always liked on the OnePlus phones. So you're probably wondering about Oxygen OS, which is the last thing that I wanted to mention. It's based on Android 8.1, which is great. It features a gaming mode to decrease notifications and latency, which is really cool. Reading mode is one of my favorite things on the OnePlus phones. That's still included under the display options. There's also this cool thing called App Locker, and that will secure your applications, specific applications that you choose, of your choice with your fingerprint, and it's a very handy feature in case you want to hand your phone over to somebody and let them use it
for you.
Yeah, and you can lock it with your fingerprints. Very, very cool. Dark theme makes everything dark, obviously. That's also under display options, and it's brand new. It's super useful for the nighttime, especially if you get tired of things being blown out and lower brightness just isn't low enough for you. You can just make everything dark. Expanded screenshot lets you take a really long screenshot. It just continues down the screen for you. So if you have a long web page or something that you want to stick on Pinterest, for example, you could totally make a really extended long screenshot. Weird little perk. I really enjoyed it. And lastly, gestures are included as well, just like their previous phones, but I kind of found that I never used those.
For those of us who don't spend as much time in Android, Oxygen OS is essentially Android that's been customized by...
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's not the vanilla
OnePlus
version of Android that you get with the Pixel 2 XL. It's their version of the software. And it looks very well, but of course it's not vanilla, and I prefer vanilla. And the last thing that I wanted to mention too is OnePlus 6 has a pretty serious security vulnerability right now. And according to OnePlus, a fix is on the way. I found this over at techradar.com. Apparently it's an issue with the bootloader. So this is a physical hack that requires an attacker to have your phone on hand. So chances are slim that you would actually be hacked, but they are going to be releasing an update so that that's not an issue going further.
What could the attacker do?
They could get into your bootloader, they can root it, and they could access pretty much everything on your phone.
So federal employees
it's a serious vulnerability.
with security clearances might want to hold off.
I think it's a 0 day for the OnePlus, so it's pretty serious. So is this a flagship killer now, or do we consider it a flagship? Well, given the prices starting to creep up into that flagship territory, you know, $650 with tax that goes over $700, at least in California, I would argue this one is now, I consider it to be a flagship myself.
How much is the Pixel 2?
The Pixel 2 starts around $800 or so dollars, so this one's about...
Before taxes?
Before taxes.
Right.
So this is about $150 less than that. So it's still cheap. Comparable to the Pixel 2 XL, Samsung, the iPhone, and everything. But the camera's on par, sometimes beating the Pixel 2 XL, sometimes not. It has all these features that I would expect, sometimes more, although the speaker kind of sucks. But it's a beautiful phone. I absolutely would pick it as one of the flagships, especially if I didn't have Google Fi. But I have Google Fi, so I'm stuck with Pixels.
So it's less than the Google Pixel, but
Yep.
offers comparable camera quality and screen quality.
Yeah, definitely.
It's less than the top of the line Samsungs.
Yep.
I think it's less than the top of the line LGs.
I think so, yeah.
I'm pulling the dial more towards flagship killer at this point. I mean, because that maxed out version of the phone, that's 256 gigabytes of memory.
I know.
How much is in the Google Pixel?
It's ridiculous.
That's
128,
800?
I believe.
So twice the storage, probably more memory, as good a camera, $100 less.
Yeah.
You make the call.
All right, comment below. Tell us if it's a flagship itself or if it's still a flagship killer. Let us know what you think. You can email us, ask@tekthing.com as well, or you can tweet me. I'm @snubs.
Charles emailed ask@tekthing.com. He writes, nice job on the Pearl Kickstarter review. Go Shannon. And your caution towards things crowdsourced. It would be awesome if TekThing could do more of your in-depth purchase recommendations of Kickstarter and Indiegogo projects that meet your experienced smell test as to project viability. Will the project actually ship its product based upon team members' track records on other projects, etc.? I know this will involve extensive research, but it will be of enormous value to your listeners. Crowdsourced project team members work on multiple projects over time. It would help consumers to know which bad apples to avoid when making funding decisions.
I agree. Well, thank you, Charles.
Yeah.
So we have some thoughts. First off, I wanted to say congratulations to Pearl. That's so exciting. They hit their goal and they went over it 4 times, their Kickstarter goal.
Yeah, they hit their goal
amazing.
in like the first 9 hours they were
Yeah,
open.
dude, I'm so proud of them. I'm really excited for them too because the product is awesome. So good job, guys.
I've actually signed up to get one
Yay!
through the Kickstarter. I'm in.
Awesome.
We would like to do more Kickstarter and Indiegogo reviews. We tend to avoid covering crowdfunding projects that don't have hardware we can test.
Yes.
Which immediately eliminates the vast majority of Kickstarter and Indiegogo projects. Pearl, for example, we just showed you them, and Odyssey's Mobius are 2 examples of near final hardware that we were able to check out before the product actually shipped, right?
Yes.
So, these were products where we could actually get, in this case, ears on, in Shannon's case with Pearl, to actually test it. And that's really, really unusual to have pretty much complete hardware towards the, before the product actually crowdfunds.
And that's not to say that we don't receive a lot of PR emails about Kickstarter and Indiegogo products, but every single time I reply back and I'm like, cool, send me a product, I would love to review it on the show. And they're just like, we don't have one yet. And I'm like, okay, send it to me when you start shipping and then I will review your product. But I don't want to advertise a product if I don't have something physical in my hand.
Yeah, and that's, at one point, I think we were averaging 1.5 Kickstarter pitches from PR people a day.
Yeah, it's
for about a year.
Ridiculous.
Not so much anymore. As far as experienced professionals, people who have been there and done that, case in point, look, OSIC.com. Oh boy.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, so, we talked about the OSIC 10 fail. That was helmed by people who had like a decade of experience pretty much running the audio team at Logitech. They had a functional demo product before launch. I think their Kickstarter extensions, like adding Android and iOS on top of trying to push a lot of sophisticated full-on sound object-based 3D audio technology, pretty much overwhelmed them. Because it was like, if we hit 2 million, we'll add micro USB and Android, and 2.5 million, and we're going to add, and that's, we'll talk about that in a second. Another one, Experience Group, the Chip PC group came out with the Voter. This may seem familiar. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Also a fail. They did a great job shipping the $9 Chip PC, but this company is now completely gone. So
depressing.
So I have a couple friends working on an audiophile headset for gamers that they plan on crowdfunding. Vocal, VOKYL.io. It's hard finding a functional URL these days. And this is kind of what their webpage looks like. I flat out asked them, I have heard the very first one of these they built. I asked them, how do you actually know you can build and deliver all of these?
Yeah.
And it was an interesting conversation because I know these guys and I know them really well, and they were really blunt and upfront with me. So they're part of the group JDS Labs. They build amazing headphones and amps and DACs, but that's not a headphone, right? Because headphones have drivers. So it turns out they're like, yeah, well, we're going to a really big industry resource for the magnesium aluminum drivers. They've worked with a bunch of big audio companies, the company that builds the drivers, like scaling on this, no big deal. They've basically got references for the headphone, the ear pad manufacturers, and the headband manufacturers from another company. They're CNC milling the aluminum ear cups in-house and doing final assembly themselves. And they literally walked me through, like, this is what we can do on the machines we have. This is when we need to buy a dedicated CNC milling machine to do all the work for this, like how many units they have to sell. And the quote they had was, we're kind of doing this backwards because we have the product's final before we launch.
But that's so smart.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it's going to cost a lot of money up front to do all that manufacturing, even if it's just for one product.
Right.
In a lot of cases, that's more expensive for that one product than it would be for multiples. But then they know that they have that product in hand, and they know what kind of steps they need to make in manufacturing to actually do it for a much larger scale. So it sounds a lot like the Pearl Charger. They're not trying to invent something new from the ground up. They had a finished product before the crowdfunding campaign actually started.
Yeah, they're also not adding giant piles of complexity with their crowdfunding goals.
Yeah.
A lot of people think OSIC's trouble started when they added that phone support for Android and then iOS's stretch goals. They literally say on their website near the end of the, near the end, quote, mobile support necessitated a fundamental architectural change for the OSIC 10, requiring some additional development time, that would be 2 years, ultimately making it a better product, except that they ran out of money before it shipped. Yeah. So here's the thought. Support makers just understand that there's a risk you might not get the new shiny no matter what their track record is. And yes, I mentioned before, I'm a Pearl backer. I want one on my workbench. We'll review Kickstarter projects either when you ask us because you're desperately curious, because some Kickstarter projects blow up and everybody wants to know.
Yeah, totally.
And if they have product, but I don't think either one of us are comfortable with going like, look at the thing!
Yeah.
They're going to ship next month!
There's no way for me to honestly review something unless I have it in hand.
Right.
And that's been my rule since I started doing tech reviews since the start. I will only review it if I actually have the thing in hand. It's kind of a simple review to live by.
It's crazy, but it works for us.
Let us know what you think, or if there are any Kickstarters and Indiegogos that you do want us to check out. And hopefully we can get some products in for review because we would love to. And we do love to support makers out there. Ask at TekThing.com, or you can tweet at Patrick Norton and at Snubs.
We love your questions, your tips, and your suggestions of products and ideas to check out. We were just asking you. You can tweet at TekThing, at Snubs, at Patrick Norton, or just email ask@TekThing.com. And a big shout out to our patrons, patreon.com/TekThing. You pay the bills, you make the show possible. Our thanks to all of you. Please join the crew that makes TekThing happen at patreon.com/TekThing. And hey, patrons, we told you, let us know what you'd like to hear in our special patrons-only podcast this month. Email us, ask@TekThing.com, or message us at patreon.com/TekThing. If you haven't caught the last one, let us know. We'll get the link back out there for you. Thank each and every one of you for supporting the show and watching the show. We appreciate it. Jerry writes, I read yesterday that LastPass will now be able to use Yubikey Authenticators. What's the big deal? Is it just faster? Why would I want this over a temporary text code from LastPass or Google Authenticator? Why would I want a Yubikey? Is it more secure than Apple Face Scanner? Jerry, you own, I think, every single Yubikey ever made.
Yeah, pretty much.
You reviewed them on the show. What
That's
are they
correct. So, yes. Well, great questions, Jerry. Thank you so much. There are many questions in there, so hopefully I answer them all for you. So for anybody that is not familiar with the Yubikeys, they are a type of physical authentication, and they come highly recommended by myself as well as other security professionals. So basically, Yubikeys take the place of your two-factor authentication app or that SMS text with a one-time code that you receive to your phone. Yubikeys are just one of the many keys on the market that feature this thing called U2F, which is Universal Second factor. And that has a strong authentication, and it's much stronger authentication than phone apps. And it can protect against some of the more common hacks against phone apps or SMS codes, such as social engineering your phone carrier into changing the SIM card to the attacker's phone so that they receive the SMS codes. That's a thing. Man-in-the-middle attacks on a website, session hijacking where somebody spoofs a website and then they steal your code and immediately put it into a website with your username and password. Those are all problems that come with two-factor authentication.
My personal favorite, when you use SMS messages to get your 2FA number from, say, Amazon, and they show up on the display.
Yep, that's a thing too.
Had a friend of mine's son buy a whole bunch of stuff on Amazon while he was asleep.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
So sometimes codes are stored in plain text on your device, like he mentioned, or they are sent in plain text to the website as well, and that could be of a concern. That's probably the biggest reason why you would want a Yubikey over Google Authenticator. More protection. Now, same with your phone. If you lost it, you would kind of be screwed unless you printed out your backup codes for when you first set it up with two-factor authentication options on your account. So keep that in mind too. And the U2F keys aren't accepted on all sites, so keep that in mind as well. There are some pros and cons with U2F compared to, traditional two-factor authentication. For me, I'll be honest, Google Authy, LastPass's Authenticator, those are more convenient because I don't always have my keyring on me. I don't always have my Yubico on me. Also, the Yubikey isn't necessarily available for all platforms. They do have USB 2.0, they have USB-C, they have NFC. iOS didn't have that NFC capability for the longest time, but they just released iOS NFC options, and I read about those over on the Yubico blog. They literally just released it last month. So Yubikey comes to the iPhone with mobile SDK for iOS and LastPass support. That means that different application developers can now include that NFC support for a Yubikey, so you just pass it on the NFC code on your phone, and it'll unlock that application for you, which is really, really cool.
And so much more convenient than using one of these to plug a Yubikey into the Lightning port on your phone, because...
Well, 2 reviews.
Well, they work better than the reviews, which is 2-star reviews. That said, the NFC stuff is only for iPhone 7 and later, which means I would need to upgrade my phone.
Yeah, so in regards to whether or not it's better than Face ID, that's a good question. First off, Face ID via Apple is very secure in that it's very hard to duplicate, and the digital algorithm, it kind of hides, without getting into all the technical details because it's pretty deep, it's pretty high level, it hides your facial information from being stored on the phone. So the phone just receives a whole bunch of these specific data points, like hundreds of different data points that match up to the algorithm of your face, and then that tells the phone all these data points match, or like a certain percentage of them match, so you can unlock or lock the phone depending on what you're trying to do. So,
versus Google Authenticator, which keeps the time algorithm that generates the number in plain text in the application, should someone be able to get their hands on your phone.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is.
So is it more secure than U2F? On its own, I would argue that U2F is more secure, so Yubikeys are more secure. An ever-changing second device, that Yubikey versus your face, I feel like it's going to be the U2F key. I have no doubt that eventually security issues will be found in both. That's just a part of living life as a human in this day and age. Everything is going to be hacked at some point or another, but we can do our best to prevent the hacks as they come. So at this moment, I prefer U2F, and I would continue to prefer it over Face ID until that point where U2F gets hacked. And then I might change my mind.
Quick survey before we go.
Yeah.
Do you currently use a Yubikey with your Android device?
I tested it. I have it set up, but the Google Authenticator stuff is my backup, so I prefer to use that because I like the convenience. I know it's not as secure, but I like the convenience, and I am very aware of that security flaw.
Whatever issues with SMS or Google Authenticator might be, it is still better to implement those rather than not having two-factor authentication. I don't use Yubikey because I'm not going to be able to carry around a Lightning to USB camera adapter everywhere I go with my current phone.
Really?
So with the desktop, it works great, as long as nobody steals the key.
Just buy a new phone.
I'll do that. Right on that.
Yeah. Grab out that credit card. Go for it.
A big thank you to Hack5 for the studio space. Do yourself a favor, check out the Security and Privacy Podcast at hack5.org. Then get over to hack5.org/gear and you will find some superior pen testing and USB automation tools. And if you haven't heard about it yet, please take a look at the Packet Squirrel, the pocket-sized man in the middle that's nuts for networks. There's puns in there. And for reasons I don't know, the time and date is just hanging out in the middle of that Chrome screen. Chrome, you weird sometimes. The Packet Squirrel,
Chrome,
awesome.
you cray.
Chrome, you cray.
Chrome, why you being cray?
Oh my goodness. And remember, once in a while, put down the phone, step away from the screen, close the laptop, and do something analog, like make something.
Like make something.
Well, okay, so a bunch of people asked, is there any more Maker Faire? And yeah, actually.
There's always more Maker Faire.
First up, let's talk Sharky Go Round, aka Ghost Shark. A spiral of 10 hammerhead shark turns slowly on a rotating base in contrast to a dead finned shark writhing at the base. Subtle? No, but a crazy number of sharks are killed annually after being finned, and this was one of the most amazing displays of metal arts at this year's Maker Faire. Kids were loving it, the detailing was gorgeous, and the ball bearings it rotated on were crazy huge, like bordering
so cool.
on bowling ball sized. While we're thinking watery thoughts, Under the Ocean, OpenROV.com had the Trident underwater drone running in a big kiddie pool. They are always at Maker Faire, but they were letting all comers try the remote out on this one. It shoots 1080p video live, has a dive time of 3 hours and a maximum depth of 100 meters. The thing is gorgeous. The display model with the clear case, I just was staring at it, fascinated. Orders are going on right now at the website. A $200 deposit to hold your place for a drone with a standard 25-meter tether, which is about $1,400. Another $300 gets you a 100-meter tether for maximum depth, which makes me feel all Star Trek. Maximum depth, or Captain Nemo. Origami is cool. Origami paper is kind of expensive for classrooms, but the Super Origami Lego machine makes it easy for tiny hands to make their own origami squares, and it's built from Lego, which is awesome. Props to Lorelai, Vera, Xavier, Coral, Jane, Asuka, Sho, and Reina, the first and third grade students from the San Mateo County School District that built the machine to recycle old worksheets and letters into origami paper.
That's so cute.
It is. Speaking of origami, Arigami, giant balloon dragon. Turn thousands of balloons into a giant 3D sculpture. My 5-year-old almost passed out with excitement getting to make a balloon pixel for one of the clouds in there.
So cute.
It's crazy. They have animated videos of them building these insane things.
Wow.
Out of, you know,
It's like color by numbers with balloons.
Yeah, they basically map out. It's origami.
So cool.
Renegade Design, keep flossing, my kind of t-shirt. I love seeing printmakers, booksellers, and crafters back in volume at Maker Faire. The Computer History Museum had a big display. It was kind of horrifying to realize that the compact portable, the PC I stole from my old man to take to college, is now approximately 3,000 years old and museum worthy. Tormach had the PCNC 440, one of their personal CNC mills, on display. It's like $5,000 for the base machine, figures $7,000 with a PathPilot control system, a vise, and a tooling kit. $14,000 fully kitted out with an enclosure, cooling, auto tool changing, ponies, wonder bars, all that good stuff. Ponies. PrinterBot had their printer belt. In case you've ever wanted to make very long parts or mass-produce 3D printed parts, the kit's $599. PrinterBot says, quote, not for the faint of heart, expert users, builders only, adventurers welcome. PrintRbot.com is their website. And I just got to say one last thing before I go. The Cardboard Robot Arena. Citizen Scientific Workshop are showing off mixed reality robots for education. My boys were super curious about the cardboard combat robots. They're also working on sort of a soccer competition. They have a Kickstarter, cardboardrobotarena.com, I believe is the URL for that. Check the show notes and I'll make sure it is down in there. And I also want to give a proper shout out to the Chabot Telescope Makers Workshop, helping folks build their own telescopes since 1930. Right over there in the Oakland Hills.
Super close by.
ChabotSpace.org. Got a link in the show notes. And that thing you were looking at right there is grinding, I want to say, a mirror for a telescope.
Yeah.
Someday.
That's amazing.
I love watching that.
So cool.
It is cool. I'm Patrick Jordan.
I'm Shannon Morse.
We'll see you next week on TekThing. I have been fascinated with LACP versus load balancing on NASA's to discuss LACP on routers, it's weird. And probably actually unnecessary to take advantage of all the Ethernet ports on a NAS.
Oh, wow.
I just tossing that out there.
All right.
There's been testing. It's been weird. It's been a weird week, even before the sports ball parade. By the way, the parking lot,
Yeah.
full of blue and gold confetti.
I was wondering, is that biodegradable confetti?
This
It
is
better
Northern
be.
California. Even in Oakland, everything is biodegradable.
I was gonna say.
Except for the
be like,
concrete.
somebody's gonna yell at somebody if
And
they're
the
not
asphalt.
biodegradable.
And broken glass.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of that too.
Well, usually it's pretty cheap.
Yeah.
But 1 billion people show up to throw a party.
Oh man. You should have seen the lines coming out of BART this morning.
Oh, I did.
People in line for the little paper tickets for the Bay Area Rapid Transit, they were just like lined up forever. And I was like, oh, I am so, thank Batman that I have the plastic card that just lets you straight in, because there was no way I could stand in that line forever.